Hello, friends. Today I'll be reading to you from the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, some selected verses. I'll read verse 1 and 2, 8 and 9, 22 and 23. And I'm reading to you from the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. It says, "A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. The rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is maker of them all. Whoever sows injustice will reap calamity, and the rod of anger will fail. Those who are generous are blessed, for they share their bread with the poor. Do not rob the poor because they are poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate. For the Lord pleads their cause, and despoils of life those who despoil them." As kids, many of us were offered advice, wise advice, from our parents and grandparents. We might not want to admit it, but some of the wisdom they shared with us went into one ear and came right out the other. But without even realizing it, much of that wisdom actually stuck and has influenced us in our adult lives. We remember the things we heard, which we're now teaching our kids and grandkids, like honesty is the best policy, and if you fail to prepare, prepare to fail. We didn't know it then, but our parents and grandparents were passing on Proverbs to us. Proverbs are wise sayings and lessons for everyday living. In all communities, cultures, and even families, there are various proverbs, sayings that were shaped by those specific groups which reflect their values. Today I read from the book of Proverbs, and this book also came out of a specific culture and time. The majority of the book of Proverbs was written by Solomon, who was king in Israel in the 900s BCE, before the Common Era. So it's almost 3,000 years ago. In the Bible, the book of Proverbs is a collection of short sayings gathered from different places and produced over a long period of time. In general, these sayings represent wisdom derived from practical experience, and they constitute wholesome advice about the way a person should live in order to attain a happy and satisfactory life. The book of Proverbs covers a wide range of topics. They include discipline for children, shame and dishonor, neighbors and friends, mercy and compassion, marriage, adultery, drunkenness, and stealing. But there is also the matter of power, the distribution of wealth, and how the rich deals with the poor. While there are a multitude of topics addressed in the book of Proverbs, the underlying theme, the core of this book, is the theme of wisdom. The book also sets up a contrast between the wisdom of God and the foolishness of human beings. Through all these wise sayings in the book of Proverbs, the wisdom of God is revealed. And the expectation is that the wisdom of God should shine through in human relationships. In our daily lives, we've got our own definition of foolishness, and it's very subjective. One person might think it's foolish to cut your own lawn when you can get someone else to do it, while another person might think it's foolish to get someone to cut your lawn when you yourself can do it. But in the book of Proverbs, a fool is defined as someone who has no respect for others. And foolishness is behavior which shows no concern for other human beings. Wisdom also has different meanings. We think of wisdom as having knowledge, and it is. But in the Hebrew language, the language of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible, the word for wisdom is hokmah. And it's a little different from our understanding of wisdom. While we tend to equate wisdom with knowledge, in the Hebrew language, the word for wisdom is more than knowledge. It's not about the knowledge of the head or what one knows. Wisdom is actually putting knowledge into action. In other words, wisdom is knowledge that's lived. So when we talk about God's wisdom, what we mean is that in everything God does, in all of God's works, God is aware of everything and everyone, and God acts justly and kindly. Hear the words again from Proverbs 22. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. The rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is maker of them all. Whoever sows injustice will reap calamity, and the rod of anger will fail. Those who are generous are blessed, for they share their bread with the poor. Do not rob the poor because they are poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate. For the Lord pleads their cause, and despoils of life those who despoil them. What the text is saying is that the Lord made everyone, regardless of their status in life, regardless of their financial background. It's saying that all those who act unjustly will face God's judgment, and those who help others will be blessed. It says, don't rob the poor or treat them badly, for the Lord will deal with you accordingly if you do. The word poor in Proverbs chapter 22 verse 9 doesn't only mean those without money or resources. The word poor actually means those who are seeking help, those who are weak, those who are suffering for one reason or another. Proverbs is saying to us, if we don't take care of those who suffer, if we don't fight for human rights and uphold human dignity, we are foolish, and God's wisdom is not in us. Today, there are churches everywhere in our world, in every corner of our globe. And Christians are talking about God 24/7. But many are not putting those words into action. People still hold on to deep-seated feelings of hatred toward people in their own families. They still hold on to prejudices. They don't care about people who live in poverty and could care less about people who are dying in conflict every day in our world. According to the Food Aid Foundation, 821 million people in our world, that's 1 in 9, still go to bed on an empty stomach each night. Even more, 1 in 3 suffer from some form of malnutrition. If we say God's wisdom dwells in us, we need to work together to end people's suffering. We can't only talk about God and Jesus Christ 24/7. We need to be God's hands and feet. God's wisdom looks completely different from our wisdom. God's wisdom empowers us to feed the people who are hungry in our cities, to advocate for equality for every man, woman, and child, regardless of their race. God's wisdom calls us to accept the stranger, to care for the elderly and mentally ill, and the vulnerable children in our nations and world. This is what God's wisdom looks like. It is extensive action to help others. So as I conclude today, my prayer for you is that we together will walk in God's wisdom every day and grow in God's wisdom. The grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of the Lord abides forever. Have a blessed and wonderful day. Goodbye for now.